On the afternoon of July 11th, 2022, at about 2 p.m., two Hamilton County, Ohio Sheriff's deputies observed an escapee from the River City Correctional Facility in Cincinnati in the parking lot of the Baymont Inn hotel. Although they were unable to make a positive identification before the suspect entered the hotel, they contacted the Mason Police Department for support. A Mason officer learned that the female observed in the parking lot with the suspect, whom she had just met, was registered to room 310. The two detectives, as well as several additional Mason police officers, knocked on the door of the room and were immediately met with screaming, yelling, profanity, and threats of violence made by the suspect. Mason police immediately requested the assistance of the Warren County Tactical Response Unit. The suspect then barricaded himself inside the room, keeping the woman as a hostage and threatening to kill her if officers came through the door. Several times, the suspect was seen at the window, and officers observed a knife in his hand. WCTRU used a negotiator through the night to talk to the suspect, but at approximately 2:30 a.m., as negotiations broke down, the team forced entry into room 310 and observed the suspect holding a knife to the hostage's throat. A single TRU member fired one round into the suspect's face, ending the standoff and recovering the hostage. In keeping with our standard policy, we will not be using the suspect's name or identifying him in any way. It is our hope that he will be lost to the sands of time. We will, of course, be using the officers' names because they are heroes and need to be remembered. My guests today are Sergeant Nate Trout, who has been with the Lebanon Police Department for 16 years and the Tactical Response Unit for 13. Sergeant Jim Dottie, who has been with the Warren County Sheriff's Office for 19 years and a part of the Tactical Response Unit for 17 years. And Deputy Scott Williams, a 25-year veteran of the Warren County Sheriff's Office and a 21-year veteran of the team. My name is John Becker. For the past 4 decades, I've dedicated my life to protecting tactical operators. During this time, I've worked with many of the world's top law enforcement and military units. As a result, I've had the privilege of working with the amazing leaders who take teams into the world's most dangerous situations. The goal of this podcast is to share their stories in hopes of making us all better leaders, better thinkers, and better people. Welcome to the debrief. Guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate you joining me on the debrief.
Thanks for having us.
There you go.
So, why don't we start with just kind of your individual backgrounds, how long you've been on the team and all of that?
I got on 17 years of it, so next month will be 17 years total for me. Been a team leader for, I want to say 10 of those. And that's been it. I've had other ancillary jobs on the team, grenadier, stuff like that, but the bulk of it has been just entry and an entry team leader.
Scott?
Yeah, it was 2001, I think, when I started getting involved with the team. Back when it was old school tactics, old school ways of doing it, and then it's just kind of graduated in. I moved up the ranks of, an assistant team leader, a team leader. Position came open as the assistant commander, and I've been that for several years now.
Got it. Nate, what about you?
2011, in February 2011 is when I started on the team. So 13 years, been a cop for 16. Took over the team commander about 6 months prior to this call out that we're here for. So a couple years now, but 2.5 years now. But
okay. Well, why don't let's start with talk to me about the team, right? Because it's always nice to give context to where we are. Nate, explain the team, because multi-jurisdictional regional team, there's a lot going on here. So help me understand it.
Yeah. So state of Ohio really doesn't have very many full-time teams. Very few. I think less than 5. So it's very common to see multi-jurisdictional teams. Some counties have multiple. So you have 2 or 3 agencies that make up one team, and a sheriff's office and one other agency will make another team. Ours is different in the fact that we're the only one in the county. So every major agency, full-time agency, we have a few that don't contribute, but those are really small agencies. They contribute officers. There is no cap on it, so you can pretty much, if somebody said we want to add 6 people, as long as they meet the criteria, then we would take them.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So we don't have that magic number. We're at 26. But every agency that contributes officers, their chief or sheriff, I guess, also, they make up a policy board, and that's how we're governed. So policy board picks commander, assistant commander by the policy they wrote. We have a meeting once a month with them. We can't spend any money without policy board approval. Doesn't matter what the amount is. They approve our training schedule, and we give them a debrief on every single call that we have at those meetings also.
So 26 operators, how's that kind of configured? Split in 2 teams?
We don't split. No, so it's just one team. The way that we respond to call-outs, though, and the reason why there's a commander, assistant commander, why that's important is because whatever agency calls us, they technically are the ones in charge.
Oh, interesting.
So whoever's the on-scene commander there, could be a road sergeant, could be the chief, it really doesn't matter. Whoever the ranking person is, they are the one that is in charge of that incident. So when we respond, then we'll give them a tactical solution to the problem that they have, and it's up to them if they want to utilize that or not.
So that local jurisdiction is the incident commander, and it stays that way, and you are providing a service to that incident commander.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Very interesting. How many jurisdictions, how many agencies are currently in the team?
8.
Yep.
So eight separate agencies comprise the team. How many are like give me an idea how many cities there are in the county?
Oh, that's it.
So every agency in the county contributes to the team.
We have small villages. So in Ohio, you have townships, cities, villages, and like unincorporated areas that would fall under a township. So usually the sheriff's office will cover townships. Some townships have their own police departments. We have 2 township police departments that are on the team. And then you have a city. City has to be 5,000 residents or more. Anything smaller than that's a village. So we don't have any village officers on the team.
Because at 5,000,
most of those village officers are full-time, part-time things.
Yeah, so a guy that's just part-time.
Yeah, one of our rules is you have to be a full-time officer.
Yeah. Got it. What's the op tempo for the team like? Like how many ops a year are you doing, and kind of what's your bread and butter work?
We do 14 to 26. So we've averaged 1 a month. This last month we had 4.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends. There's no rhyme or reason, and there's no like favorite month either. It just seems like whatever it is, that's what it is. So we might go 2 months with nothing, and then we might have a month with 6 or 8.
Yeah. We have a very good relationship with our drug task force, and they realize that some of the things that they're lacking are the tactics when they're doing their drug stuff. So they ask us to help out with that. So pretty much any kind of entry that needs to be made or a surrounding call out, something like that, they rely on us. So that's probably our bread and butter with it. A lot of barricades, suicidals, things like that. If it's a suicidal male or if it's a suicidal person that's armed, we still come out. Our tactics are significantly different, but we still respond out for those. I know it's a hotbed topic, but we've got a team, we've got equipment, we're going to respond out to those.
Yeah, I mean, suicides has become a real, because frequently what happens with suicides is, the agency or team goes out there and ends up killing the guy, which feels kind of counterproductive.
Correct.
The goal is
Absolutely.
to get him to not kill himself.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, so is there a team, like is there a state team in Ohio that you can turn to, or are you the last resort for your county?
We are absolutely the last resort for our county. We have a state team. We have a state highway patrol. We don't have a state police department. Okay. So state highway patrol handles anything state-owned, prisons, things like that. They take care of vehicle crashes, speeding tickets, stuff like that. But as far as incidents inside of the county, outside of a prison, we are the one-stop shop.
It's your
We
problem.
handle that.
Got it. Yeah, and I think one of the things that gets lost in especially with multi-jurisdictional teams is, people are like, well, there's these small towns, these small counties. Like, yeah, in the end, it doesn't really matter how big the town or county is. Like in this case, it's a hostage rescue, and it's your problem.
Absolutely. Yep.
So maybe, like, Scott, why don't we start with the beginning of this incident? Like, how does this thing kick off initially?
Sure.
And then how do you guys get involved?
So days before this starts, so there's jails inside of Hamilton County. Hamilton County is just south of us. Hamilton County encompasses the city of Cincinnati.
Okay.
So
you guys are just north of Cincinnati.
exactly. We're the county just north of Cincinnati.
Got it.
So 2 inmates escaped from a halfway house. They're court ordered there. They went to prison. They're in this getting rehabilitation. 2 inmates escaped. Don't think anything of it for a couple of days because it's Hamilton County's thing. They're doing their thing, trying to locate them.
What were the inmates for?
I only know one of them. One of them was had a pretty bad rap sheet, but ultimately he struck his 3-month-old child several times, spit in the child's face, and ended up recording the thing. And
this is our guy.
This is our guy.
Yeah.
This is our guy.
That's
Sounds
why.
lovely.
That's why he went to So he had time on the books.
Yeah.
He originally went to prison for a shooting.
Okay.
So he went to prison for a shooting that occurred in Cincinnati. Then went to the halfway house after he got violated, probably by his parole or probation, whatever it was, for that video he made with the 3-month-old.
Yeah, beating his 3-month-old child,
Yeah.
and spitting on him.
Not a real nice guy.
No, yeah, he's pretty much already pegged my foot.
Yeah.
So these 2 escaped.
Yep. So where this takes place is inside the city of Mason. City of Mason, beautiful city. I think it's the 7th safest city in the United States. I mean, they do a great job. It's a massive tourism. It's the home of Procter & Gamble, Fortune 500 companies, just a great city. There's a massive theme park there, the ATP tennis tournament's there.
What's the theme park, out of curiosity?
Kings Island.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm working day shift that day, patrolling the area around the city of Mason. And I start hearing grumblings of something going on at a hotel on Beach Boulevard, which is up by the theme park. Don't really pay much attention to it because it's all like road supervisor, call this detective, make these phone calls, something going on at the beach. So I really don't know what's going on. We have an app on our phone that we all share information with. And somebody says, hey, something's going on at the Baymont Inn on Beach Boulevard, FYI. So I'm like, okay, it's near my shift change. I'm going to head up there. As I'm headed up there is when the city of Mason formally requests the tactical unit respond up that way.
Got it.
So ultimately what happened was Hamilton County detectives see the suspect in the parking lot. They are able to confirm that's him. He meets a girl, an unknown girl, in the parking lot. They go into the hotel and ultimately get a room. They go up to the 3rd floor, and she has actually rented the room 310, and they go into room 310. And that's kind of what kicks this off.
Got it. So were the Hamilton County detectives? They're looking for this guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're doing phone pings, everything they can do. They've gotten a tip somehow. They knew that we need to check this hotel, and sure enough, it pans out.
Got it. So they trace them up to room 310, you said?
Yep,
So
310, 3rd floor.
They pin this down. They still don't know who the girl is. So at this point, you guys have been activated. What happens next?
So the 3 of us are all working. We pretty much get there at the same time, maybe within 2 minutes of each other. We're rolling up on scene. We kind of ask, what do you got? Here's the situation. When the door shut, they went up and knocked on the door and said, front desk.
Room service.
Room service. Yeah. And he sees that. He immediately runs to the window, thinks that he's going to jump out the window, but it's the 3rd floor. we know from the interview after the fact with Kelly, the woman inside the room, that she says, looks down, says, "There's cops everywhere." Turns to the door, says, "You come in here, I'm going to kill her." And that starts the hostage situation.
And so, now we have like a righteous hostage situation. He's manifested intent to kill her.
Yeah. So, there was some questions. There's some questions there, though, because we don't know who she is. Does she know him? Does she not know him?
Is his girlfriend?
Is she a willing participant? And it through the night, we just don't know enough to make that decision until a certain time when something kicks off and we're like, that made our decision for us.
Got it. Okay, so you guys get there and you're starting to do the initial investigation, right? Dude, obviously, different county, they're dirtbag. Now you're a problem. Like, what is your initial investigation? When you guys first get there, what are you doing for homework? What information are you getting and gathering?
We were a little behind just because we didn't find out that any of this was really going on until then. So Scott had heard on the radio. The three of us were all work that day. Okay. I mean, we started working at 8 o'clock in the morning. This happened. What time we get the call? Like 3:45.
3:45 somewhere.
So we're all getting ready to leave at 4 o'clock. So we had already worked the whole day. I didn't hear anything about it. I don't think you heard anything about it. No. So when we get there, I looked at Scott. I was like, what is going on? Because in our county, you don't usually have just a swarm of cops somewhere without us all knowing what's going on.
Yeah, because I mean, this is small agencies.
We all know each other.
You all know each other.
Yeah. So it's not like something big can't happen without us already all knowing. So that was automatically odd. And originally, we were told that there was 2 females in there, and that he had a gun in there, is what we were told originally when we first got there. So we did a little bit of research with the units that were on scene. They had a whole task force assigned just to those 2 inmates. So there's at least 20 of them there, I would say. They had their command staff that, they had a lieutenant and a couple sergeants that were there just in charge of the detectives that were looking for the 2. So we, of course, went back, me and him kind of split the difference between the command people that were there, just talking about, how did you get to this location? How did any of
exactly the way you're telling me is true?
How did any of this happen? And then honestly, the way it sounded and the way it was coming out so quickly, they relayed real quick that he was going to kill her. He was in a hotel room with her, just barricaded himself in there, and that was all before we got there. So, I got on the app and I was like, the page hasn't even gone out yet, but we need immediate entry team right now.
Yeah.
So whoever gets there, get your stuff and run up there as fast as you can. So we did get a chance to slow things down a little bit, which was good. But originally, I thought the 3 of us were going to be the entry team to go up in there because, we just didn't have a whole lot of information.
Yeah, I mean,
first responding.
Everything about this is pointing to crisis entry right out of the gate.
Yeah.
We did know who they were. I mean, we border Hamilton County, and the Mason is not far from the county line. So where we were at was not far from Hamilton County.
How big's Mason?
Population-wise?
Yeah, is it pretty small town?
No.
It's fairly decent.
It's probably got a daytime population of 70,000.
Okay. All right.
They probably have 50 full-time officers, somewhere around there.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, maybe more than that.
Yeah, I mean, but 70,000 gives me a sense.
In Ohio, it's fairly big.
Yeah. And now you got Mason guys on your team.
Yes.
Yeah. How many Mason guys are on the team?
3.
Okay.
No.
Right. At the time or now?
I'm trying to think at the time.
2 or 3?
It's different.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when do you first make contact or start to get direct because everything you're getting up until now is kind of secondhand intelligence. When do you start to get like your own direct intelligence?
Yeah.
Oh, probably not until we make contact by phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as this is all going on, the officers outside the door are shouting through the door and have a line of communication. It's not a good one, but there's conversation between the doors that's kind of getting funneled to us. So we get the hotel evacuated. As soon as we get enough guys together, send them upstairs with just whatever equipment we had in our cars in case we had to do a deliberate entry. We have a breaching shotgun, but we didn't have it at the time. We just took a 12-gauge shotgun with double aught up, Halligan tool, a ram, whatever we had, just in case this goes sideways. And then as officers started showing up on scene, our SWAT guys started showing up on scene, they started relieving road patrol officers, and we could start formulating plans when all of our equipment starts to get in there. So we're replacing the shotgun, our patrol shotgun, with a breaching shotgun, start getting explosives together, things like that, and getting ready in case we do have to do a deliberate entry.
Got it. So this kicks off 3:20-something. What time does the full team get on, sir? Whatever full team you're going to have, how long does it take you to get everybody there?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I showed up fairly quick right after Scott and Nate. And Nate had sent out after the initial page, like, hey, this is like a legit hostage rescue. And so immediately I'm like, we got to get in there. We got to get up there in case there's, needs an emergency entry. So it ended up being me and 3 other guys that had just rolled up on scene in the patrol vehicles. We had no team equipment there. Like Scott said, we just grabbed everything we could out of our cars, rolled up. So me and 3 dudes relieved the patrol guys, and then slowly as guys started kind of coming in, started filtering more guys inside. So we kind of had it now. All right, we went from basic 4-man, emergency entry team to now we got enough guys that we can kind of start formulating a deliberate entry plan and kind of getting more resources in place. So it kind of filtered. I would say everybody was in probably within an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's 4:30, 5 o'clock-ish.
Yeah.
And now you've got full team on scene.
Yeah.
At what point do you guys take over? I mean, I'm going to use the word negotiation, but it doesn't sound by your initial reactions that negotiation was what was happening through the door. So
I think our first phone call was made to him around 5:20.
Okay.
We had learned. So by this time, he has a phone. It's Kelly's phone, the woman with him. He's calling everybody. So by this time, his mom is on scene. We push them all over to a different parking lot that's not visible to where he is. So mom comes up and says, hey, I've got him on the phone here. We're able to get that phone number, set up our negotiator, set up their equipment, and then once we get the road patrol officers out of there, we start making phone calls to him.
Got it. I'm sure mom being on scene was really helpful too.
The local police department did a great job of keeping that aside from us.
Yeah. It's not going to end well for her son. So
Right.
So, okay, you first made contact with him. What's he say?
Oh, he wasn't cooperative at all. He was playing games with us. He demanded we call him Lord Super Sexy on the phone.
We didn't do that.
We didn't do that. He didn't really want anything. He didn't ask for anything. He always asked to see his people, which
That's all he wanted.
there was probably 50 people that were related to him that eventually showed
over the
up.
course of an hour.
Oh.
By the time this was done, there was over 100 people
Yeah.
that just saw it on the
So
news.
it's a crowd control problem now too.
We
Not
didn't-
for
We
us.
didn't see any part of that, and they did. I don't know what officers were involved in it, but they did a great job because it never got to us.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we don't know.
That's really kind of a separate call inside of the overall call because that had to be handled and we didn't have the ability to do that. We're dealing with the hostage in the hostage rescue situation. We don't have time to deal with a crowd control problem
Yeah.
also.
Good Lord.
But it was very one-sided. He was calling everybody and telling them where he was and to come up there. So there was, probably like 100 people.
So he's building a show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah. Well, he's going to get it.
Yeah.
So as you're going back with Lord Super Sexy, what point when do you find out about the girl and like what her relationship to him is?
So like I said, we were originally told 2 females.
Yeah.
I think that kind of got lost in translation because the other inmate he escaped with met up with his girlfriend, and they all 4 were in the hotel at one point. I'm not really 100% sure where that information came from. We found out pretty quick it was just Kelly that was in there with him. We went for a long period of time with no contact with her at all, and with him. I mean, it was over 2 hours probably.
Yeah, from start to finish, we made 260 phone calls to him over the period of 10 hours. Just trying to build a rapport. A lot of times he'd kick us to voicemail, wouldn't pick up. But we knew pretty quick the first negotiator that talked to him, they had butted heads. Something wasn't right there. And I think it's just because he was the first negotiator to just talk to him. Once things started to calm down a little bit, our negotiator switched out, and that negotiator, Adam, started to get a rapport with him, started talking to him. The phone calls lasted longer, starting to get a little bit more information. At the same time, Dottie's up in the hallway. He's hearing stuff through the door, conversations. So it's still, we're not sure. Is she a willing participant? Is she a hostage? We just didn't know.
Yeah, this is a 2-person barricade or hostage
absolutely.
situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was living it up initially because he could see the news crews out there. So he was at the front of the hotel on the 3rd floor. So he had the window open. He was like waving his knife around and stuff in the 3rd floor window initially. And we had snipers out there, but we did not at that time have enough to say, yeah, she's a hostage. She's not a willing participant.
Yeah, him waving a knife in a window
absolutely.
is not a reason to kill him.
We never saw her from the window. So we didn't have enough at that time, and then he quit doing that pretty quick.
You may assume one of your long guys. There'd be a math major to figure out that's not going to go well at some point.
He had shut the blinds pretty quick and then never looked at them again.
Yeah.
He figured that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So at what point do you discover who this girl is and what their relationship is?
Our negotiators eventually talk to her on the phone. They find out her name's Kelly Rose, able to get a Facebook profile. But the brief conversations that they had with her wasn't enough because he kept interrupting it. So it wasn't enough to say, why are you there? You know, the negotiator couldn't talk to her one-on-one. It was with him there. So we started piecing things together. Family members were telling us, oh, she's so-and-so, you know, so we were able to find her Facebook profile that kind of said, okay, that's who she is. But still.
Who is she? Like, how does she end up with this dirtbag in a hotel room?
So the story that we got was she is getting a room there for the night. They have a mutual friend in common, a woman in common. It may have even been his girlfriend, I'm not sure. But calls Kelly and says, hey, Cromwell needs a place to stay for the night. Can he stay with you tonight? He's got a warrant, needs to hide, something along those lines. And she says, yeah, that's fine. That's kind of how it kicks off in the parking lot. So
supposedly they had never met prior to that.
Right.
So I don't know if she actually knew if he was one of the escaped inmates.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't. I wouldn't be surprised if she did. So I don't know. But they were acquaintances, but I don't think they were any kind of relationship or anything like that.
Yeah, like nothing you're saying so far flips the hostage switch.
Correct.
Right? Like, it's still like, well, she invited him into her room.
Absolutely.
And she's dumb enough to hang out with this guy. And so it's like, it's not feeling like you need deliberate entry yet. Right.
Correct. It's not deliberate entry, but it's also not, let's just throw some gas in there and see what happens. You know,
Right.
we were beyond that. We're like, we're not comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, because if in fact that is it, whatever action you take may launch him.
Correct.
Yeah, this is a hard one.
Yeah.
So, at what point does the negotiation change? Like when we're doing this, how long are we doing this? Like 260 phone calls, non-productive. He's playing games, inviting friends, putting on his own little
show. So we got a pretty good feeling from the guys up there in the hallway that somebody was smoking meth in the room. They could smell it. Whenever that odor would come along, he would calm down. And then when that odor would go away, he'd start getting more agitated. And as the night
better by the second,
as the night went on, his agitation at the peak was getting worse.
Yeah.
There were times where he would calm, but it was getting worse at the peak. And then all of a sudden it just kind of went stagnant. Not until about 10 o'clock, 10:15, I think, is when we decided we needed to do something small. So the decision's made, we're going to shut the Wi-Fi off, which is going to kill the TVs, and we're going to shut the air conditioning off because it was hot. I don't know what the temperature was, but it was probably 90% humidity, 90-some degrees out. It was hot.
Oof.
So it was July 11th, right in the middle of July, and it was hot that
90
day.
and 90.
The hotel manager says, I can shut off the air conditioning, but it has to be the entire floor. And I can shut off the Wi-Fi to the entire building. We should do it. That ultimately sparks a response. That sparks him calling us.
Okay.
And says, what's going on? I don't like this. He ultimately says, I don't like the fact that I can't see myself on TV. You need to turn TV back on. At that same time, he says, hey, Kelly has a dog in here. This dog needs to go to the bathroom. You need to figure out how we're going to get the dog out of here. So that conversation started because he called us.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, this worked.
Got it.
Ultimately, a few minutes later, once that phone call was made, decisions made, we're going to reroute his phone. He's had carte blanche to call whoever he wants to. We get a hold of Verizon, and we have his phone or her phone redirected to our negotiator phone.
So he now has one friend.
Absolutely.
Negotiator.
Yep. No matter who he calls on his phone, it rings to us.
Phone a friend will always be the negotiator.
Yeah.
Got it. But I guess that probably doesn't go over particularly well.
There's an interesting phone call that we have. All of our phone calls that our negotiators made are recorded.
Yep.
And it's an interesting phone call. He's like, wait a minute. Why are you talking?
You called me.
What number is this? And our negotiator goes, you called me. He goes, no, I didn't. So he gets a little agitated, but not.
I mean, to be fair, he's on meth. It's very confusing.
Yeah. So at the time, it worked great. It got the response that we wanted.
And we'd never done that before.
Really?
Mm-mm.
What made you decide to do that as a tactic when you hadn't used it before? Where did you learn that you could do that?
One of our negotiators.
Really?
Yeah. They had heard about it or read about it. He goes, I think that we can redirect his phone. And we're like, how do you do that? He goes, hold on, let me call Verizon. Call Verizon. Verizon says, I'm going to email you this form. Fill out this form. We'll take care of it. So he fills it out on his phone, emails it back. Within a few minutes, they said it's done. Any phone call he makes will go to you. They ultimately said you had two decisions. We can shut the phone off completely where it won't call, but you will not be able to call it.
Which you don't want.
Absolutely. Or we can redirect all phone calls to you. He said that's what we want. And they took care of it.
All right. So now he's hot. He can't see himself on TV, and the only friend he has is you.
That's about right.
Yeah. Got it. What is the next step? Are we getting closer now to a resolution on who she is or why she's there?
That's right around when her mom called.
Yeah. So there's a lot that takes place in between there.
Okay.
There's a conversation that Nate has with Dottie and says, how effective are we right now? You guys have been in place, no air conditioning, kitted up, ready for a hostage rescue for hours.
Yeah.
How effective are we? And that's a conversation that these two have, and they'll have to fill you in on that because it ultimately leads to us doing something we've never done before.
Yeah. So Nate had come up to the hotel. I walked down to the far end from away from the room so we could talk. He posed that question to me. I kind of thought about it, and I was like, man, most of the guys had worked day shift. We'd been in place, kind of jocked up, ready to go for this hostage rescue if need be, since about 4 o'clock. It's reaching 8 o'clock. By the time we had this conversation, I said, dude, if you can get us some relief by 10, I think the guys are good for a couple more hours. If you can get us some water and some food in between, get us some relief by 10, I think we're good till then. So ultimately that sparked Nate calling another team.
I mean, you guys are 12 hours and 90 in gear.
In gear, yeah. The good thing for us at the time, though, was since the PD had evacuated the entire hotel, we owned everything. So all the doors were open to us. We didn't have to worry about anybody else on any floor. So at some point, we started kind of cycling guys out of the stack, like, hey, go sit down for a minute, so we could kind of dip into these other
air
rooms.
conditioning's still working on the second floor, I'm assuming.
We never left the floor. Everybody was still on the third floor. Yeah, we just had them go sit down and kind of
relax.
Yeah, but it was still fairly taxing.
So as team commander, you're wondering about your operational effectiveness.
Yeah, when we started to get to a point where we weren't making a whole lot of progress with him, and I was like, how long can you actually stand in a hallway ready to do a hostage rescue at any moment and still be effective as you should be?
Yeah. And
that's why I went up. I was like, I need to do a face-to-face with him because he's been up there the whole time, just to get the real-world picture of it. And that's what he told me. So I was like, we gotta get started. We have never done that before. I don't know if it happened prior to me being on the team, if we have ever called another team for anything. I can't think of why we would have.
Yeah, we have a neighboring jurisdiction that we work really well with. And if there's some sort of presidential detail, there's a lot of politicians that come to the county. Yep. We'll call them for help, but we've never given over a scene to anyone.
We have called them to augment us.
Yeah, to help out, but we've never passed off.
So what's the other county that you call?
Well, it's not a county, so...
or the other team?
Yeah, the other team is Westchester Township, which is in Butler County, which is neighbors us. So it's just north of... There's two counties north of Hamilton County, Butler and Warren. So they are just on the other side of the county into Butler. We did not call them because they do not have explosive breaching capabilities. So we pretty quickly, all three of us kind of had the same idea that this has got to be at least initiated by explosive breaching. And they don't have that capability at all. So we ended up calling Hamilton County Police Association. So there's Cincinnati, and then there's Hamilton County, the agencies that make up the rest of the county that's not Cincinnati. So they have two teams. Cincinnati has their own team, and Hamilton County Police Association has their own team. And we called them because we knew they had the explosive breach capability. Scott, you can tell them how that call went because he's the one that contacted
Yeah, I got a hold of their commander, explained the situation. He said, absolutely, we'll come out, but I need the sheriff to request us. I go, okay. So I ended up calling our chief deputy, and I said, Chief, here's what we got going on. Can you make his phone call? He said, give me a minute. He makes the phone call. I call the commander back. He said, we're on our way. I said, all right, here's where we are, stage where you want. Once you get here, we'll fill you in. So it was probably an hour before they started showing up with equipment and members, and they ultimately decided that they were going to meet off-site, maybe a couple 100 yards, and then come in together as a team, just to kind of stay away from our command post.
Sure. So you make the call 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock?
It was around 9, and they started showing up around 10.
10-ish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that they were, I forget what time that they, we put them or escorted them up. You guys know? No.
We got relief at 11 o'clock. So my hope was when Nate and I had talked that we would have relief by 10, and it was almost an hour and a half past that. So, like I said, guys had been in place, ready to go since 4. It's now about 11:30, I think, or right around there, when the other team was escorted up to the 3rd floor and started relieving us in our positions.
Yeah, and we didn't get what we wanted because their explosive breachers were unavailable. So once we put our heads together, the decision's made. HCPA will take over, but they need Nate and I to stay, and they need our explosive breachers to stay. Everyone else, take their kits off. We're going to send them somewhere to get some relief, but we stayed on scene so that they had their own command post. We had our own command post that had the negotiators inside of it. So Nate decides, I'll stay with our negotiators. I go into Hamilton County's command post so that we have a radio channel in common, and we just start feeding each other information on anything new or anything that happens. Meanwhile, our team that was in the hotel is moved to a fire department, maybe half mile down the road, and they basically take over that fire department, hit the recliners. They think they were sleeping on tables, recliners.
Dudes
floors.
were racked out everywhere.
Sleeping on ping pong tables, eating pancakes,
Yep.
playing Xbox.
Yeah. They.
Firemen and prostitutes.
Yeah.
The only two get paid for sleeping while they're.
Yeah.
So like, is this evolving, right? Where are we with a tactical solution to this? Have you already placed charges? Have you guys already come up with what your, direct action plan is going to be if you have to, or deliberate action if you have to?
So, like I said, initially it was just 4 guys. We got up there, made a real ad hoc, like, hey, if this goes right now before we get other resources, then this is what's going to happen. As guys and resources started kind of filtering in, that plan slowly changed. We finally got some explosive breachers, like they had already said, up. We knew from the Hamilton County detectives that he had barricaded the door with some furniture. But while we were up there, we could hear them moving about inside the room, using the restroom, back and forth. So we're like, well, it's barricaded, but how barricaded is it? So my initial fear was if we put an explosive charge on the door, it would have to be too big to defeat all of that barricade, which would put us too far away for minimum safe distance. So the initial plan was to work the door with a breaching shotgun and follow that up with a ram if need be. And then we had 2 water charges, one placed in the adjoining room to the right and one in a common bathroom wall to the room on the left. And once that was in place, I'm going to say all of that with the breachers and everything in place was probably about 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock. And that's how we kind of hung out until relief at about 11:30, with that kind of being like, this is it. If we got to do a deliberate or an emergency entry, it's all going to go on the same.
Got it. But your breachers are going to be the ones that initiate the charge, and then their team will make the entry.
Yep.
Yes.
And you guys had not trained with these guys previously?
No. They did tell us right off the rip. They said, we will go in if we have to go in, if he starts to harm her. But other than that, it's up to you.
Yeah.
We're going to sit out here, get you guys the rest that you need. But if you guys decide to go in, and I respect that. I mean, that was
I mean, it's not their problem, right?
Absolutely,
absolutely. They're doing you a favor. It's not their problem.
Right.
If you're going to make a deliberate assault, then it is your problem.
Sure.
But he starts stabbing her or something. Then they're going to move.
Correct.
Seems like a reasonable position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happens next? What's the next step here forward?
So he posted a Facebook Live video.
Man, shut the fuck up. What's up, y'all? I don't know what's wrong with people nowadays. I think y'all think this shit's a game. I think you think this shit is funny. Do you think this shit is funny? Do you think this shit is fucking funny? Do you think it's funny? I know this dog don't think so. But I'm saying, why the fuck y'all think this shit a game? See, y'all keep playing with me, man. Hey, I told you what the fuck I wanted. I told you to stop talking to me unless I get it. You don't want shit to turn up, then do what the fuck I said. I told you, I want to talk to my peoples. I'm trying to let her have a fucking phone call, just cause I'm not a bad guy. But I'm saying, y'all keep fucking with me, motherfuckers gonna end up dead. We're playing games. Alright, then do what the fuck I just said, and I'm telling you right now, shit'll go a whole lot fucking smooth. Otherwise, somebody's gonna get fucking shot, and someone's gonna get fucking dead. Quit playing with me. Yeah, they don't need to know shit. Fuck what they talking about. Fuck with the shit they talking about. I don't give a fuck about none of that. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit, bro.
Like Scott said, we had pretty much established that she was not in there under her own free will just by the phone calls we were having, and stuff he was saying, yelling at the officers that were in the hallway. He knew that they were out there, but he posted a Facebook Live video, just talking gibberish, like none of it makes sense. Just he's high.
Yeah, he's smoking meth.
Yeah.
I mean, give him a break.
Yeah.
And he keeps walking around with like this big fillet knife. I have no idea where he got it. We were operating the whole entire time that he had a gun and a knife. We had already seen the knife through the window initially.
There were several phone calls where he said that he's going to shoot whoever comes in.
Yep.
We had talked to his mom. His mom relayed to us. I don't know. She said, I don't know if he had time to get a gun, but if he did, he'll shoot you if you go in there. Yes. Okay, fair enough.
That's his mom that told us that. So we thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to call when your mom says you're
Yeah.
willing to shoot cops. I will
absolutely.
call that a credible source.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he just walked around in the hotel room, and he shoved the knife up to her face and underneath her throat. And
This is on the Facebook Live video.
on the live video, and that was really the first time we saw any kind of escalating behavior. And as soon as I saw it, I was in, like he said, we were split up. As soon as I saw it, I was like, there it is.
Here we go.
Yeah. So then
That pretty much checked every box we needed checked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, and what was her demeanor in the video as he's posting?
Oh, she was scared to death. He was saying, I think that you guys, he's talking to us saying, I think you think this is funny. He puts the knife up to her throat and says, do you think this is funny? And scared to death.
Yeah. He made the comment that we thought he was just joking around.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not joking around.
Okay, well, we're taking you seriously now.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was not a good strategy on his part. So let's set up then. Now you're at a point where you're like, okay, we need to intervene.
Yes.
But your team is on recliners at the fire station, and the guys that currently have the problem will not do a deliberate intervention.
Correct.
So it's wake up time.
Yes. So I mean, me and Scott watched the video together. I left ours and went over to talk to him. We weren't that far away.
Yeah.
Just
Right next to each other.
Yeah. And he relayed the information to them to let them know like what we had just seen, and that's when I called him on the phone.
Like,
It was not a pleasant conversation.
oh yeah.
So-
hey, I know you just fell asleep, but
And this is 2 a.m.
2
Yeah.
o'clock. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's
They'd
been-
gotten relief. It's been a
you
couple
guys are
hours.
A couple hours.
Yeah, I think we finally left the scene about midnight. Some guys stopped at the gas station, got some water, some Gatorade. A lot of guys just went straight to the firehouse. Dudes just started taking over any flat surface they could. Couches, recliners, tables, the whole thing. Everybody's kicking off boots. Everybody dropped gear. I'm sprawled out in a recliner with no boots on. I got my phone on my chest, and I'm out. And about an hour and a half after I fall asleep, so right around 2 o'clock,
Right about the happy part of the sleep.
Nate calls. So I pick it up, and he says, hey, man, we're going to go ahead with this deliberate entry. I don't recall if he told me about the Facebook Live video at the time. It didn't really matter to me. He just said, hey, we're going to go with the deliberate. I need you to get everybody up and get back. So I said, roger that. Started getting everybody up. I think we arrived back on scene maybe about like 2:05. Like I said, we were only maybe a half mile away-ish. Everybody was back, ready to go in kit, on scene about 2:05. I think we escorted. We had a little powwow outside. Went over the plan again. Made sure everybody knew what the plan was. Everybody was good with the countdown, what was going off on when. Everybody said they were good. We went back up, relieved Hamilton County's team, had them all the way out the building. I think there was some discussion between them because they wanted to kind of stay and hang out and see if...
Yeah, there was... They didn't want to leave. They're like, no, we'll stay here, we'll help. And Nate ultimately says, listen, if this turns into an officer-involved shooting, we don't need 2 teams taken out of service. Right? I need you all to go outside.
It's a smart move.
So that you can help us out if we're taken out of service.
Yeah, that's a really smart move. Rather than compromise the entire tactical capability of both teams, if one team's going to move, and the other team clean and sanitized.
It was interesting because they all walked out at the same time, and they walked over to me, and they said, will we hear this countdown on your radio? I said, you will. And they said, okay, we're ready.
We should probably mention what happened during our meeting in the parking lot.
Yeah, so
the pursuit.
We've got this big powwow, and I say this during our presentations that we give. This has been rehearsed I don't know how many times. Every person knows exactly what they're going to do over and over and over again as the night went through.
Are you guys practicing on an adjoining room or something?
No, we didn't have enough people to kind of cycle guys in and out where we were doing kind of mock-ups and stuff. But since we had access to every room on the whole floor, everybody knew the layout. We knew kind of what we were doing. We talked about it. I mean, just really like, hey, and this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen.
The suspects in 310, we own 308 and 312. So those guys that are in 308 are repping what they're going to do. Our charge is going to go off. We're going to do this. NFDD. So we cover that. And just the look on their face, everybody knew what this meant. Because just the tone in Dottie's voice when he said, you all understand what we're getting ready to do. You know your job. Go do it. At the same time that he's doing that, there's sirens going everywhere. The second escapee drives up, gets in a pursuit as this is all going on. So we hear this pursuit kicking around the road right in front of us. And it's the second suspect. We didn't know it at the time, but it's the second suspect. Yeah.
So he's with troopers that are going the wrong way down Interstate 75, like
71.
71, sorry. Yeah.
Nice.
And so they take care of that. It's game time for us. So everybody goes up, gets in position. Hamilton County comes out.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're in 2 adjoining rooms.
Yes.
You've got breaching charges on the wall. Let's say 310. Is it 308 and
312?
Yep.
So 308, you've got a wall charge.
Yeah, it was deep in the room, close to the front of the building, so kind of towards the windows, like the exterior window. We had a wall charge on 308. There was some discussion since we'd had 2 breachers finally show up on scene about where to put this second charge. During the initial wait earlier in the night, I'd gone down and had a face-to-face with them about, hey, this is kind of my plan. This is what I want to do. They had kind of drawn up almost the exact same thing between the 2 of them. So all 3 of us were on the same page. There was some discussion about what to do with the second charge. I originally just wanted another wall charge. There's some debate between the other team leader, Joe Gray, and Scott about whose idea it was. I don't recall. There was a lot going on that night.
It was mine, 100%. He's not here. It was mine.
So if it worked, it was Scott's.
Yeah. So the second charge we ended up putting into the wet wall in between the bathroom in 312.
So like the toilet pipes.
Yeah,
exactly. The toilet to 310 backed up to the toilet.
So toilet's about to come into play.
And the thought there was, well, if we start this entry and we can't get through the door and he takes her and then barricades into the bathroom, we're back to square one.
Yeah.
Right? So the thought being like, okay, well, let's put a charge on there. If he does pull it in there, at least we've denied him access. We got guys there that can deal with that problem. So ultimately, that's what we did. And like I said, those charges had been in place for hours.
And these charges, the intent is to port the wall.
Correct.
Yeah. Not to make an entry, but to make a port.
Yeah, just a gun port.
It's for those viewers that know, it's a 300 grain water charge. So it's 300 grains of det cord attached to an IV bag, taped up, placed against the wall with a prop stick. That's the charge. We know that we're going to push that IV bag through the drywall. That's going to give us a port.
Got it. So we're making ports deep in the room and in the bathroom.
Correct.
And then are we also trying to make entry in the primary door?
So the plan was to have we had one dude on a breaching shotgun and a guy right behind him with a ram. So start working the problem on the door with the breaching shotgun. If that doesn't pop it right away, dude with the ram can start following it up.
Inward swinging door?
Yeah. So the two dudes in the stack at the very beginning, both breachers, and then the assault team, which was 4 guys, were stacked up right behind them in the hallway. So after we relieved HCPA, everybody just filed back into their exact same spots that we had been 2 hours previous. Nate and the negotiator, Adam, had a conversation where I think Adam relayed to him, like, hey, man, I got him. He picks up every time I call. So one of the things that we want from our negotiators for our hostage rescue is, can they push us intel? Can they manipulate the target around the room? And can they cause a distraction if need be for our initial assault? And with Adam saying, like, yeah, we can, he's picking up every time. That was kind of the basis for our kickoff. So Nate was going to have Adam call him once we were on, relay to me. He's got him on the phone, and that was going to kick off the count.
Got it.
Yeah, he had ultimately asked for his first thing that he wanted. He said, when Adam talked to him, he said, I want to get this dog out of here so he can go to the bathroom. I want a pack of Newports and a cheeseburger. If we can get that, he said, if you can give me my Newports and a cheeseburger, I'll release the dog. And
Great.
we said, okay, fair enough. We'll do it.
In fact, bring the dog out to the door.
Yeah, and the thinking is somebody's going to be separated from the other person as they're letting this dog out the door.
Yep. So we did talk a little bit, me and Adam, because we had a lot of, like, 260 phone calls. Some of them lasted like 2 or 3 seconds. So I was a little worried it was going to be like one of those. So I said, when you tell me you have them, I'm going to count to 10. And then I'm going to relay to Dottie up there that he's good to start the countdown for the explosive charges.
Got it.
So
and at this point,
how that works.
Is the negotiator just promising him anything he wants to keep him on the phone?
Pretty much. He told him the dog warden was out there. He told him that we had a big crate for the dog and that we had cheeseburgers, Newports. He's just making,
just stay on the
being
phone.
extremely
stay on
agreeable.
The phone, try and get away from the hostage.
Yeah, being extremely agreeable with him, saying that we have everything you're asking for, we're ready to do it. So while I'm counting and then telling him, and then he starts the countdown.
I mean, you are going to bring him something.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
He counts to 10.
Nate relays to me on the radio that they got him on. Again, we had talked about what the count was going to be. It was going to be an 8 count, starting at 8, at 5. The shotgun breach was going to start working the door problem. At 3, both wall charges go off, thinking that would be enough time with the port charge going off after the breaching work on the door, that's going to divide his attention, or that's going to be the last thing he hears. So he's going to start and turn towards where those breaching charges are as the assault team's kind of coming through the front door. So Nate gives me the go. We started an 8 count. I got to 5. Breachers start hitting it. I think he put 2 or 3 rounds through the breaching shotgun into the door. Ultimately, it did not pop like we wanted it to. So the guy with the ram starts working it, hit it twice. First one put a hole in the door. I mean, went right through it.
Of course it did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get to 3. Both wall charges hit, just like they should. We had originally wanted a flashbang through the wall port in 308, kind of following that up. So as he's turning, bang comes in, pops, as the assault team's kind of coming through. So breachers bail out. The assault team starts working the door, gets it open. There was some barricade there. He had put a coffee table and a recliner chair, and then the mini fridge was kind of stacked up against it. They ended up pushing through that. First operator through, they start kind of pieing off on him, him and the second guy. Suspect is on a couch with the hostage Kelly, grabs her up, puts a knife to her throat as he starts hearing something going on in the wall charge behind him, kind of turns his head like that. And the operator, Chris, took the shot and ended up hitting him right in the face.
So this is the guy that's going to actually shoot him is the first or second guy in the main door.
Yep, first guy in.
Gets a solution and fires one round?
One round. Took care of the problem immediately. Ended up hitting him just above his lip under his nose. Dropped him immediately. He had her wrapped up, so they kind of fall. She springs up fairly quick. The next couple of guys in grab her up, start escorting her out. They zip tied him, and then that was kind of it. So from breach to bang was just under 20 seconds.
That's fantastic work. I mean, one round fired, effective.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as well as it can be done. Do we ever find out, like, how does this girl end up with this dirtbag? Like, is she just dumb enough?
I think poor life choice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
generally
She
speaking,
made
when
some
you
poor
end
life
up in a
choices.
hotel room with an escaped inmate, you've made some poor life choices.
Yep.
But in this case, it's probably a series of poor life choices
that's correct.
that made that make sense to her. So, I mean, is this the first HRT you guys have done?
Yes.
Yes.
In
We'd
history
had-
of the team?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
legitimate
absolutely.
hostage rescue. That was the first. We'd had other ones that were like kind of came out as a hostage rescue,
like a family member or something like that. Where
but ended up
you
really
talk
not.
your way
A
out of
captive
it.
or,
It's
Yeah.
not-
We've had a couple that have ended in suicides by the suspect.
Yep.
So
yeah,
we don't count those as a hostage rescue.
yeah, and it wasn't.
You rescued the
when,
hostage, even if you talked the guy into killing himself.
when Nate had taken over, we felt like that was the biggest hole in our game.
Yeah.
We didn't have anyone around us that taught hostage rescue. You know, somebody had learned something from another person. There just wasn't anything in Ohio that we were comfortable with saying this is the way we're going to do it. And Dottie can share on it. He did some research and found a place in North Carolina, sent him down there, and we repped it every training. We start off every training doing something hostage rescue, and we nailed it. I mean,
You nailed it. So, I mean, hostage rescue is certainly the Super Bowl of the tactical world, and this is a pretty high risk operation. Talk to me about, like, what, as you're coming in, you're like, hey, we need to have this capability. You go to North Carolina. What is your kind of lessons learned?
So that conversation between Nate and I had actually happened years before he had actually taken over. But we kind of knew, like Scott said, that was the hole in our game where we were kind of like, oh, okay, we'll do it kind of like this and that. And we just weren't comfortable with where we were at. So ultimately, I ended up, I think it was 2019, down at an intro to hostage rescue class in High Point, North Carolina by a company called Esoteric. Phenomenal class. Brought those lessons back. And it was just, stuff. How do we posture on the door for a hostage rescue? Importance of those countdown timing between your breach and those port explosive distraction charges, all that kind of stuff. So I brought those back under the old commander. We started doing that as our hostage rescue training. When Nate took over, we started doing HR stuff every training, at least for a little bit. If it wasn't a dedicated hostage rescue day, it was a portion of that training that morning. So we had been repping it pretty good for a while. The problem was we had, I want to say, like 9 new guys start in May. This happened in July. They'd only had a handful of trainings, and several of those guys were on scene. So limited resources about guys that we could actually feel like handle a deliberate entry of that magnitude, while also using the resources we had, being those new guys. All right, so what jobs can we give them that are not actually going into the room So kind of playing those out as the night went along was kind of a interesting task.
Yeah, no, that's a scary op.
Yep.
For sure. Let's kind of go through some lessons learned. So, like, Nate, let's start with the good stuff.
Yeah.
What? I mean, obviously a lot went well here, but what are the particular lessons learned for the team from a positive nature?
Positive nature is, prior to this, we had only used explosive breaching once operationally. Wow. We have done multiple trainings with it.
Yeah.
And the previous mission that we did it on this was 3 days prior. So
wow.
Our very first operational explosive breaching was 3 days prior to this. And it was one door breach exterior. That's operationally on a search warrant. Operationally, that is all we had done prior to this night, and that was 72 hours before that. So, I
mean, you're doing your second explosive breach ever.
Yep.
And your first hostage rescue ever.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you were probably in pucker factor 25
No.
as a commander of this thing.
It went just like we planned.
Yeah,
it really did. It really
did. It did. But I'm gonna guess Nate's blood pressure was probably about 250 over one.
Yeah.
You know,
the biggest positive I think we got out of it is what we are doing in training is exactly what we need to be doing in training.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Because, like he said, we had trouble finding that piece anywhere near us, and we took that as what we were going to do. We adopted it 100%, and we made it happen in the training side of things till everybody was comfortable with it. And I guess you don't know if you're doing something correctly until you really have to do it in real life, and for me, it's the biggest takeaway from it, positively.
Yeah, because I mean, this could have been the end of your explosive breaching program.
Absolutely, it could have been the end of a lot of things.
You guys are all in on this,
yes.
and there has to be a first, but a hostage rescue in a hotel room that's a pretty tough first.
Yeah, we couldn't find any research, and still we really haven't, of another team that has done a simultaneous double breach while doing a shotgun breach interior. We haven't found it. I'm not saying it's not out there.
Yeah, there some of the full-time teams have certainly, but not in Ohio.
Right. Yeah. So we were like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know, this is what makes the most sense.
Yeah. We so previous commander did an amazing job of getting us from point A to point B. I felt like the policy board, did they believe in us? And I was worried that they didn't.
Yeah.
Once this happened, I mean, it was almost like a light clicked. And they've always been supportive of us, but now it's like these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's because I don't know that we knew. I don't know that we had the confidence.
They did.
But we did after this. Yeah. But we did after this.
Nate,
and
it was to, put his future job on the line.
And it's, when we go to the policy board now and ask for something, they know that it's legit. We're not going to them for something peddly or something crazy. These are things that we need, and just super supportive of us now.
What was your training op tempo like? How often do you guys get to train? As a collateral duty regional team, how often are you getting together to train? A month, a year. What does that look like for you guys?
It's like a lot of part-time teams. We kind of go off of like the national standard of twice a month, solid week in the summer, or at some point during the year. And that's what we've gone off of for a long time.
You say the national standards, you mean the NTOA's guidelines?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that we followed the NTOA guidelines 100% then. But we had been on that kind of training schedule ever since I started. So,
how long had you guys been training with explosive breaching?
We had the capability, 3 years prior to that?
Yeah. I mean, we burned through a couple spools of det cord just training-wise.
Yeah.
And it ultimately, my concern was that the breachers weren't confident. They did not exude confidence when I say, all right, what are we doing? And they said, this should happen. And I was like, I don't need should. And it took us a while to build up to that, but I got all the faith in them now. I mean, everything they say is to a T. I mean, they've got it down to a science now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say, could you shoot an apple at 100 yards? It's a different thing to say, would you put it on your daughter's head and do it?
Yeah.
Right? Like the risk of a training op versus a live hostage rescue, obviously, is certainly going to make the tummy shake a little bit.
Sure.
Right? Like, what else from a positive standpoint, Nate? What else is there that if because I think it's easy living in LA, where I have 2 full-time SWAT teams that are 2 of the top teams in the world, less than an hour from me, right? And probably 20 other municipal teams. It's very easy to go, oh, well, you call the sheriff, so you call, this is rural Ohio, right? Like, she's screwed if you're not there. Like, let's just call it what it is.
Absolutely.
He's probably going to at some point rape her and kill her.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's easy to look and go, wow, it was a risky move. But at some point, you have to make the move, right? Like, there isn't an alternative here.
I understand you saying it's a risky move. I've also never come from the world of LA.
Yeah.
So I don't have that perspective on law enforcement. I have that perspective on life.
Yeah.
So for me, it was actually pretty easy. I knew what we had. I knew me and Scott agreed on what we had. And I knew that I could trust him and the other guys up there. And I also knew that we were it. There's
nobody else.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it is easy to look at these situations and go, oh, well, just call somebody else. There isn't somebody else.
No, that's
right?
not.
This is your problem.
Yeah.
To resolve. So and yeah, I mean, you guys had trained for it. You're prepared for it. You've done the research. Yeah, and obviously pans out, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
What from a I don't want to use the word negative standpoint,
Sure.
but like any op like this, even a successful one, you can look back and go, we should have, or if I did it again, here's what I would change. What is Scott's like, hey man?
Yeah, we've got a lot of lessons that led up to this. That charge we set off 3 days before, we were on our way back from that, and the fuel pump goes out in our command vehicle. I mean, it's a new vehicle. It's in great condition. Fuel pump just goes out. So we have to offload all the equipment off of it, have it towed to our county garage. It's at the county garage. All of our equipment's back at our SWAT house. The page goes out for this hostage rescue. Negotiator says, I'll get the command vehicle. So it's at the garage. He shows up with the command vehicle, no equipment in it.
Nothing.
Yeah, because the gear is in the SWAT house.
Gear's at
he
the
just
SWAT house.
brought the truck.
He brought the truck.
Which was nice of him.
Absolutely.
But it would have been better for that gear.
So there was some shuttling that we got to send some people back, get all the equipment, come back. We joke about it now, but we had one prop stick, a 1x1 prop stick that we propped the charge up in 308.
Yep.
We didn't have another one. So we had to cut a branch off a tree in the parking lot of the hotel.
Southern Engineering.
As a second prop stick for the charge. What are some other lessons?
Breachers and the initiators.
Yeah. The 2 of our 3 breachers had an initiator, but they kept it with them. One of those was on vacation. So our first breacher that showed up didn't have an initiator.
Oof.
So we were like, man, that's not going to work. So we ultimately called Hamilton County's bomb squad and said, hey, we need some help. We need this. And he was quick to do it. He said, I'll be up there in a minute. He ran that up to us. What else? I'm drunk. I know there's...
Yeah, working out training with the adjoining teams that ultimately relieved us. We had done no training with those guys other than the knowledge that they had the capability that we needed them to have. We'd never practiced handoffs before, certainly not with HCPA.
How has that changed now?
Some. The commander then, they've had some changes. So things that we had planned in the past, we have a good working, network with them now. Training hasn't happened yet, but at least I know who to call. And
they had some command changes, and we just haven't gotten back to them.
So they as soon as this, it wasn't even a year after this, they had a whole entire complete change of lots of things. So we still have that connection and the communication now with them. We do have a radio channel that we can switch to with them now, so that we can have contact back and forth.
I think one of the biggest lessons, so like Nate had said before, it's up to that police agency that calls us what happens.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a homicide that just occurred in that hotel. We have to go to that chief and say, okay, there's an officer-involved shooting. Who's investigating this? Are you going to investigate it, or are you going to call someone else? And ultimately, that chief has a couple decisions. The sheriff's office could investigate it. We've investigated officer-involved shootings before. Or they could turn it over to an investigative unit inside Ohio called the Bureau of Criminal Investigations. They have a shoot team, so if there's an officer-involved shooting, they can call BCI to come handle that shooting from start to finish.
Yeah, so that gets you an objective. Because in this case, no one in the county is objective because
absolutely that argument can be made.
That
absolutely,
whole county has guys on the team.
Absolutely.
So
ultimately, the decision's made. We're going to have BCI do this investigation. So from there, it was, what are we doing with our guys? We had an officer-involved shooting on the team previous, so we knew where we were going to go. We knew what we were going to do. We didn't know, can we take our trucks out of the crime scene? We didn't use them, but we can load our guys up in our armored cars, head back to our drug task force, spread out, start to decompress. But we didn't know what BCI wanted. So we had told the chief at the time, we said, hey, can we get our trucks out of here? And he said, I don't know. I'll have to make that call. So there was a long delay in us waiting in the parking lot. Mind you, the crowd knows something happened, right? Hear a bunch of SWAT guys go in, a bunch of SWAT guys come out.
Forgot. There's 100 of his friends in the parking lot.
More SWAT guys come out. So our biggest takeaway, our negative takeaway was it shouldn't have mattered what BCI said. We should have got our team out of there, because ultimately what ended up happening, they make notification to mom as we're standing in the parking lot.
Oh, God.
And chaos ensues. Screaming, crying, people flopping on cars, flopping on the ground. We had went to HCPA and said, hey, listen, we're going to need some help here. If something kicks off with this crowd, I need your help. And they were 100%. They said, we got you. And they took over this kind of a perimeter around our SWAT trucks. Ultimately got the okay from BCI. Said, absolutely, take your trucks, get your people out of there, leave any equipment that was pertinent to this.
Sure.
Fair enough. That was left in place. Yeah. So we headed back, ended up making a phone call to the chief deputy and said, we had used deadly force. We got an officer-involved shooting. Everybody but the suspect's okay. I need a spot. He said, head to the task force. He puts out an on-call to all the road supervisors. They go, I don't know where they went. They found an open donut place at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. They raided a couple Speedway gas stations of any snacks, drinks, whatever, energy drinks. And by the time we got to the drug task force, road patrol is walking in with just hands of stuff, throwing it on the table and said, relax.
Yeah. That is fantastic.
Yeah, because at that point we were approaching the 24-hour.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are exhausted.
Daylight.
You just
the sun's getting ready to come up.
had an exposure to the result of that shooting that you definitely didn't want to see?
Yep. Absolutely.
Did you guys debrief that at that point?
No. The term ineffective would be the best thing I could say. Like there were so many. There's a big conference room at our drug task force, and it's a big long table with chairs around it, and I think every single person was just.
It's a bunk bed now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were waiting because we can't just leave now. So we had to kind of go back and forth with BCI, which we don't know any of them. We do now because we've had quite a few incidents back to back. But at the time, we didn't really know what they were going to expect of us that night. We also had to notify chiefs because it's not just one chief we have to notify.
Absolutely.
So me and him split the chief list up to call each and every policy board chief, at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, and tell them what happened. So that's what we were doing while we were waiting for BCI to come back. BCI has like a crime scene unit, and then they have the investigative side of it. And so they went to the hotel first, and they were taking their pictures and doing all that there. And then their plan was to come over to us. And ultimately, we ended up just taking our pictures that night.
Yep.
We told them, we were like, we have training on Wednesday, which was 24 hours after.
Yeah, this was on a Monday.
Yeah. So we have a training day scheduled on Wednesday. So all of us are already allocated for a training day. So I said, let's just do where you bring all of your interviewers that you're going to bring, meaning BCI, and then we'll just all show up. We went to the sheriff's office, and they pulled us aside, and according to who they wanted to interview who, and then we just did our interviews that day.
Yeah, and ultimately you have to coordinate it. When that happens, you have 20-some of us that need interviewed, all of them that have union representation.
Oh, yeah.
All of them that have certain attorneys. Lining all that up took a little while.
Yeah.
But ultimately Wednesday, Nate had sent out a page that said, dress down, khakis and a polo. Let's get in here. First, let's check our equipment and see what we have. What was taken as evidence, what wasn't, what do we have, what do we need?
Yeah, because you still got a mission.
Yep.
Yeah.
And lunch was provided by one of the police chiefs, and we ultimately just got interviewed that day. Something that we started when Nate came on was at the end of every training, we work out together. And that was probably one of the best things, was leaving those interviews, and everybody didn't know, do you talk to each other? Do you not talk to each other? It was just this weird feeling of, man, I don't want to jeopardize anything. And, but everybody hit the gym that day, and it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of put everybody back together.
Yep.
Did you subsequently sit down and debrief the incident as a team and kind of walk through lessons learned? I mean, you put together a debrief for NTOA, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know that it was anything formal, but
we did not do a formal debrief.
Yeah, we all just kind of campfire talked about it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything negative to be said about it. I mean, nope. We all, including the new guys, did what we needed to do, and it worked out to our advantage.
No, it's a fantastic operation. You guys should be really proud of yourselves.
Thank you.
Boys, thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having
us. Sharing the story.
Thank you.
Yeah.